Like I have said before in some of my other videos, the 1980s was an awkward decade for the animation industry, especially for the Disney company. Disney was wrestling with itself and its audience, failing to reconnect with modern day culture. I guess you could say this was the decade that Disney was trying to cut the umbilical cord of its own legacy, tying it down to remaining family friendly. It was trying to find itself again. It was also trying to escape the shadows of the 9 Old Men, the animators who brought the Disney company to life in the first place. The Fox and the Hound, released in 1981, was a buddy drama and was sadly pretty average, even if Glenn Keane's animation on the final fight scene between Copper, Todd and the bear was incredibly intense and dark for the film to end on. Though it is an intelligent story about prejudice, it also has a thin and predictable plot. It was far too formulaic in pretty much every other avenue. Likewise, The Black Cauldron, released in 1985, couldn't shake the cutesy Disney label and failed to appeal to an adult audience as the company had intended. The film was bleak, aimless and unsatisfying, mirroring the company's state inside and out. But I'll say this for the film, it was pretty ambitious, being the first Disney film to have CGI, and marked the turning point for Disney, no longer going down the same direction as many other animation companies were. For the next production, they needed something that was not only cheaper, since, Black Cauldron made the company practically hemorrhage money, they needed something with a lighter, gentle tone, while also being intelligent and sophisticated. Basil the Great Mouse Detective, released in 1986, may not have been as ambitious as The Black Cauldron, and it had many limits forced upon it due to its budget, but it was far more entertaining, and it tributed the earlier Disney masterpieces and pointed the way forward for the company. It finally had direction. Walt Disney himself may have been looming over the shoulders, reminding them that it all started with a mouse. So, in this episode of Mad Munchkin Blethers, we're going to put this film under a magnifying glass and study it inside and out. Here are my thoughts on Disney's Basil the Great Mouse Detective. Putting a Sherlock Holmes story to animation doesn't exactly scream Disney. Even though this isn't the first time a story like this had been adapted to animation, nor the first time Disney tackled mystery comedy as a genre. Sherlock Holmes has to be the most prolific screen character in the history of cinema. There is an animated film based on Sherlock Holmes released in 1983, Sherlock Holmes and the Baskerville Curse, as well as another animated film named Sherlock Holmes and the Sign of Four, also released in 1983. And how could we forget the animated TV series Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century? Wow, what a ride that was. I even discovered an animated short released in 1944 that may have been some inspiration for Basil, named The Case of the Screaming Bishop, that parodies Sherlock Holmes, and funnily enough, an animated series produced by Hayao Miyazaki named Sherlock Hound, where all the characters are anthropomorphic dogs, was released in 1984. Anthropomorphic mice and anthropomorphic dogs. Let's just put it down to pure coincidence. But I have to say, I haven't come across an animated version of Sherlock Holmes that deserves all that much attention, since they're just so obscure and bland. Mysteries like the ones in Sherlock Holmes' adventures aren't exactly child-friendly or family-friendly. But that doesn't mean that Disney can't still be dark and gritty. It may not be considered a Disney classic, nor the Disney film that brought the company out of its funk, since, a certain red-haired water nymph snatched that title away in 1989, thank you very much. It really should be considered that, because it did. Disney's focus before Basil was chasing after its competition and giving what they thought the audience wanted. Dark, gritty and mature content. But that wasn't Disney's legacy. Disney is family friendly and always will be. When the company released The Rescuers in 1977, another Disney movie tackling mystery and drama with mice, but it had a little more adventure thrown in the mix, they had the mice interacting with the humans, which just felt really silly. Here though, the story is seen entirely through the eyes of the mice. The mystery is within the mice world, and humans play little to no part, other than featuring as cameos in the film as the characters the mice are spoofing. The juxtaposition between the mouse world and the human world is really cleverly worked, having the mice live alongside humans who remain oblivious to their presence. Unlike the film The Rescuers, though, which you have to admit is pretty similar to Basil, there is absolutely no interaction between the mice and the humans. As the 26th animated feature from the Disney company, it has been said that it slips under the radar for many fans because of its time of release, and the same can be said for Oliver and Company. It may also be because it's a Disney movie that has no true love's kiss and no princesses, although there is a mouse version of Queen Victoria. It may not be one of my personal favourites, but I still feel the need to defend it when people keep singing the praises of The Little Mermaid instead of this movie. As I said in my review for The Little Mermaid, its commercial success was due in part to its music, and Basil isn't a musical. In fact, there's only 3 songs in the entire film. Perhaps this did work against it a little, as musicals and Disney go hand in hand. Basil rescued the Disney company from bankruptcy, but The Little Mermaid skyrocketed the company back to the top of its game. I may still be sore about the whole thing, because I don't really like The Little Mermaid as a film, but hey, Basil was released 30 years ago. Wow, does anyone else suddenly feel really old? Based on the children's book series Basil of Baker Street by Eve Titus, Basil the Great Mouse Detective is a gentle spoof of the Sherlock Holmes stories written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The film is set in 1897 in Victorian London. The entire film is set at night time, though actually takes place over 2 days. And Victorian London is depicted superbly here, with the backgrounds being paintings in their own merit of a wet, foggy, gaslit London. The animation in this film is phenomenal. The technological advances this film made in regards to CGI being implemented in a 2D animated film was far more successful than the effects used in The Little Mermaid. But let's face it, Ariel cast a pretty big shadow over that little mouse. But without Basil, Ariel wouldn't even exist. So really, not only does this film deserve more recognition, it also needs more praise for clearing the way for the path that The Little Mermaid laid down for the Disney Renaissance that occurred in the 1990s. The film has excellent character animation and stands firmly on its emphasis on story. It's snappy, witty, and most importantly, well received. It's tightly paced and the plot structure is well developed. The characters are wonderful and memorable, even if the story is a little ridiculous and pompous, but that's all part of the fun, I suppose. The story involves a little Scottish mouse girl named Olivia who goes to Basil seeking help to find her father, who was kidnapped by Professor Rattigan. He wants the toy maker to build a robot to replace the Mouse Queen and name him the supreme ruler of all mousedom. Yeah, I know, ridiculous, but just go with it. With Dr. Dawson's help, Basil hunts down his arch-nemesis, swearing that he will see him behind bars for good, and along the way, both Basil and Dawson form a strong bond, driving them to reunite Olivia with her father. A mystery comedy is not a genre that has been put to animation all that often, and really, for a story that spoofs Sherlock Holmes, there isn't exactly much mystery to this film. But it's entertaining, and that's mainly due to the interaction between Basil and Rattigan. Basil himself is a social misfit with an ego that even a human would find quite a heavy load. He's even able to tame a dog to work for him. That's pretty amazing. He's skittish and self-centered and at times really insensitive. I love this scene when you first meet him and he has a nervous breakdown, collapses in his chair in an overly theatrical way and plays a violin. Think about it, guys. You are watching a mouse play a violin. Basil is literally playing the saddest song in the world on the smallest violin in the world. Because it's a violin made for a mouse. He's foppish, insensitive, and not the slightest bit empathic until he sees Dawson's fragility and concern over Olivia's predicament. Dawson is more military-minded and far more aware of his surroundings because of his military background. He's loyal, but he does fumble about and he does miss important details that Basil instantly focuses in on. At the same time though, Dawson's curiosity makes up for Basil's obnoxiousness. He is constantly amazed by Basil's intelligence, which of course Basil eats up gluttonously. It's not until Olivia's abduction that the two of them connect on a level that makes them friends rather than just simple colleagues. When the two of them finally track down Rattigan's secret lair, they are made prisoners and Basil breaks down, losing all hope and confidence in himself as Rattigan laughs at him, accepting that perhaps Rattigan is the smarter of the two of them. Rattigan traps them both in his lair, leaving them to their doom as he escapes off on his flying blimp to set his ridiculous plan of overthrowing the Mouse Queen, dooming the Empire. Basil, who is now deflated and defeated, accepts the inevitable and has his own little pity party, not caring that Dawson will also die, as well as Olivia, if he doesn't get out of his pity party. Dawson insists that if he didn't focus on himself or Ratigan and his own failures for once, he may actually accomplish the mission he set himself to capture Ratigan and save himself and his new friends, as well as the entire Mousedom Empire. This movie really does showcase excellent character execution, and each of them have moments to shine. Olivia shows bravery standing up to Ratigan while on an air blimp. This girl has spunk! She stamps on Fidget's foot just so she can run to her father when she's kidnapped. That's pretty brave. Olivia is an adorable little character, but is always ready to try her hardest in any situation she's in. She may be seen as an annoying little child by Basil, and she is at times, which causes her to shut down every now and then when she's not taken seriously. It's not until the moment she tells Basil she has no mother that Basil has a moment of being tongue-tied before snapping back to his normal self-centered self. He finally lets himself feel sympathy when he tries to reassure Dawson that they will rescue Olivia after her kidnapping. I have to admit, Ratigan steals the show for me mostly due to the voice of Vincent Price. Often forgotten, this role has gone down in history as one of Vincent Price's favourite roles he ever played. Ratigan is deliciously evil here, deviously smug and dramatically over the top. He's also viciously vain, living in denial of being a rat, demanding he be referred to as a mouse, going as far as killing one of his own henchmen by ringing a bell that summons a huge cat named Felicia to come eat him for calling Ratigan a rat when drunk. This moment is actually pretty terrifying when compared to the rest of the film. The very idea that a rat was able to tame and train a cat to work for him is kinda creepy to me. I mean, yeah, Basil managed to train a dog, but that's more comical than creepy. Bartholomew is so drunk he is blissfully unaware that Ratigan's cat is creeping up behind him to eat him. The moment is made even more horrific, showing the killing in a silhouette only and cutting back to the reactions of the other henchmen. This is almost Hitchcock in its execution. Deaths so early on in animated movies are always shocking, and this one hammers home exactly how serious we need to take this villain. He uses something as small and insignificant as a little bell to intimidate, and it works. There's something very spine-tingly about that. He may be playful and giggly, but he's also ridiculously and incredibly relentless, and I, for one, love him for that. One of the most memorable scenes in the film, partly computer animated, Basil and Ratigan chase each other within the working of the clock tower in the Parliament buildings in London. The clock tower that is world famous for housing Big Ben. Yeah, just to clarify something guys, the clock tower itself is not called Big Ben, it is the bell within the clock tower that is called Big Ben. This moment may not show violence, but with the sound, music and the character animation, you certainly feel it. Ratigan goes berserk, reverting to running on all fours, dropping all the charm and sophistication that had been perspiring from his pores throughout the whole film. Calling him a rat is his berserk button, and up to this point he had been called rat 4 times in the film. He resorts to finally getting rid of Basil using pure brute force instead of his brain, while Basil defeats Ratigan using his wit and intelligence as well as his ingenuity, managing to snatch Ratigan's bell, ringing it just before Big Ben itself strikes, causing Ratigan to lose his balance and fall from the tower. This is a pretty ironic end for Ratigan. The final fight scene is one of Disney's most intense and still has the same level of tension and violence now as it did back then. Unashamedly British and pompous, this film stands proud alongside the other Disney classics, even if it is often overlooked and forgotten about due to its low budget and small stature. You get it? Because they're mice and... yeah, never mind. This is why I don't do jokes. But as far as accomplishments go, this film has a humble attitude toward itself. It's all in a day's work. Saving an entire country from being overrun by a psychopathic mad rat, reuniting a father with his daughter, all while being only 3 inches tall. This film, like its main cast, may be small, but what it accomplished is pretty big. If you haven't already, please give it a watch. And hey, if you have, please give it another watch. It deserves it. And so do you. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video, and before you go, don't forget to click that like button and check out some of my other content too. And hey, if you really like what you saw and want to see more, go ahead and click subscribe. Don't forget you can also show your support by following the official Mad Munchkin Facebook page for convention announcements, as well as links to my 2 online shops where you can purchase some of my artwork. Also keep an eye out on the DeviantArt page for announcements on when I am open for commissioned work. Don't forget you can also show your support by becoming a patron on my Patreon page, where you can win exclusive rewards like badges, stickers, discounts on commissions, and limited edition personally signed prints, as well as giving me ideas for what to cover in future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and see you again soon.